Hello there, kia ora. Did you know Aotearoa Media Funders are keeping track of how you access media? Well, that sounded way more sinister than it meant to. What I meant to say was that last week, NZ On Air released its annual Where Are the Audiences report that looks at how Kiwis access media. For funding bodies like NZ On Air, it's a great tool to see how our audiences are evolving. For other organisations like our political parties, it's a tool to show where to best reach their core voting base and bases who may be open to their messaging. And this year's findings are fascinating. 64% of us use global video sharing platforms, like the one that you're watching this on, TikTok or YouTube, Facebook or Instagram. The second most popular way that we watch things, though, is through TV. 60% of us watch something on television each day. But this is going down every year, and the majority of people using linear TV are still over the age of 60. This year saw an increase in people between 40 and 59 using it, and a decrease of that same group using apps like TVNZ Plus or Maori Plus. For people under 40, they're much more likely to stream content and much less likely to watch locally produced content. They're much more likely than the other groups to have multiple content sources and are the least likely to watch linear TV, listen to live broadcast radio, or read a physical newspaper. Now, here's where things get a little bit funny because the research shows things that might not feel right, like the influence of News Talk ZB. The audience for ZB is typically older, Pākehā, and conservative. They're overrepresented in terms of their influence, in terms of how media is made, the bias our media has, and the impact on media commentary and online social media spaces. And the dedicated audience has the biggest crossover of people who complain about news and opinion without realizing that they're actually fans of opinion being presented as news. Well, ZB reaches just 8% of New Zealanders. More New Zealanders daily listen to podcasts. By the way, did you know that this is also released daily as a podcast, which you can find on Apple Music, YouTube Music, and Spotify? And if you're listening to this as a podcast right now, hey, I hope your day is going great. Look, nearly half of us listen to streamed music daily. More New Zealanders read magazines, newspapers, and play games online than listen to News Talk ZB. But those that do, well, 53% of dedicated radio listeners are over the age of 60. But our Prime Minister would rather sit down and talk to Mike Hosking than somebody like Moana Maniapoto. And the research also highlights why that might be. I mean, there's probably a really clearly obvious reason, but there is also another possible reason that's not very likely. And that's that Māori audiences are the lowest consumers of radio in the country by ethnic group. But they are some of the largest for global sharing video sites. Māori, Pacifica, and Asian audiences here are also much more likely to use global video sharing sites for news and information than Pākehā audiences. And of those sites, well, YouTube is by far the largest but has dropped slightly in use, but Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok are all increasing. In fact, TikTok now reaches 18% of New Zealanders daily. Still more than News Talk ZB. Actually, both TVNZ and Stuff are the most trusted sources of news, although TVNZ is significantly more trusted than Stuff, according to this research. But their trust values don't really move much from what we saw in last year's research. So, not a huge amount has changed there. But as a source for news, well, TVNZ and Stuff are neck and neck, and social media as a source has dropped slightly. So, what does this all mean for our politicians? Well, that depends on their marketing and outreach teams and if they prefer to communicate in a way that has what we call a long tail or a short one. Right wing parties tend to have older voting bases which are more likely to ingest media that has a short lifespan. The ones far more likely to use catchphrases and sound bites and bumper stickers without thinking too much about long-term ramifications. So you'll continue to see them use traditional media like broadcast television and interviews with Mike Hosking, and attempt to reach younger voters through more user-controlled media like TikTok. Left-leaning parties tend to have smaller budgets, so you'll see them using more cost-effective ways to reach audiences that have longer-lasting impacts, using funding for broadcasts much more sparingly. It's why you'll find a lot more effort lately has gone into social media content from Te Pāti Māori, Labour and the Greens, but also the content itself is different. It feels more authentic. It's made for an audience that will find it while scrolling, for an audience using multiple apps at once, for an audience who want more control on what they see and are more willing to explore different ways that content can speak to them. And within the next election, which is at least 8 months away from now, they all have plenty of time to work on a plan to reach voters. And data like what we saw come out this week will help them with that. Or possibly hurt them. It's hard to know for sure.